Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to continue the series about historical topics on the day 3 of the CFE from 2015 to 2021. And the topic today that we're going to discuss is tax. If you want to learn more about the other topics of the CFE, please check out my other videos in this series. If you like what you see, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. So the overview of today is we're going to go over what has been tested for tax on day 3 of the CFE since 2015 to 2021, what candidates got on the CFE, solving the most tested tax topics on day 3 of the CFE, and then what reference schedules are provided on the exam. So as you can see, it seems like the most frequently tested topics were business income for tax purposes and capital asset related topics, and then personal federal taxes. However, as you can see that the capital related topics have not been tested since 2017. So I personally believe that the business and personal taxes payable are the most tested topics. Then after, you can see there's a variety of other topics that have been tested over the years. If you saw my video on assurance, then you'll notice that in assurance there's really only 5 topics that get tested every year. But in tax, it's a very broad list of topics that can be tested only once or twice and not be repeated over the years. So sorry to burst your bubble if you sat back and you looked at the list of topics and you were saying, oh, that's not that bad. I probably can get most of the things on this list. Well, that's because this isn't actually the full list. This is only the list of all the topics that have been tested more than twice. What you see on this slide is the rest of the topics that have been tested from 2015 to 2021 that only appeared once. Since the list was so long, it was really hard for me to put everything in a chart. I just listed it out on this slide instead. So in summary, it's really hard to know what actually will get tested for tax since the topics are so broad, but something to note is that most candidates actually struggle with tax, which is not surprising seeing how hard it is. So the bar to pass the tax competency is fairly low on day 3. So I'd always encourage candidates to attempt them the best that they can and to not skip any of the issues, because you might be surprised with the mark that you get with what you write down. For example, when they made the exam, they might have thought candidates needed to provide 5 points about salary versus dividends to get a C. But then most candidates might have only gave them 2 points. So then 2 points actually becomes the new benchmark to get the C. This process of refining of what is the passing grade changes depending on the pool of candidates writing that year. So you never really know what is needed to pass. So now let's look at how candidates performed in 2015 and 2016. You'd be surprised because you probably imagine that everyone got probably around 60% on tax, but in fact, if you add up the RC, C, and CD, it's actually above 80%, which is very similar to what we saw in assurance. And you might ask, why is that? Well, just remember about what I told you about how you're marked relatively to everyone else, and the benchmark of what is needed to get a C may change. So now let's talk about what the Board of Examiner said. And just as a reminder, all the Board of Examiner comments can be found in the Board of Examiner reports, which I have put a link in the description below. So what the Board of Examiner said was that this AO was not explicitly asked to the candidates, which means it was a little hidden for the candidates to determine that they needed to address it. How these hidden AOs can be asked within a case can be through the users being concerned or they're confused about something. In addition, the Board of Examiners said that the candidates that addressed this issue did not provide a lot of explanation for the tax treatment and just told them what the conclusion is. This is something that's important because you always want to tell the client or the users the why you're doing things. In addition, to get some depth in your discussion, you need to also link in more tax knowledge. So for example, if this issue was related to capital assets, don't just end the discussion there. Maybe add in what class of capital assets is this so that you can actually deduct CCA. Now let's look at 2017 and 2018. These results look fairly promising as the average was again over 80%. And then if you look at 2017, the overall averages if you combine the RC, C, and CD is almost over 90%. And here you can see all the tax topics were one-off and they were not repeated over the 2 years. In 2019 and 2020, you might be surprised that the same good trend continues as candidates perform fairly well on the tax competency. However, don't be tricked by the high RC, C, and CD percentage, because it seems like most candidates now are in the RC bucket, whereas in the prior years, most people were inside the C bucket. Then we look at May 2021, and you can see right away that there was one area that candidates did not do so well. So when reading the Board of Examiner comments for this AO, you'll notice that many people did not actually attempt this calculation, and they just provided a qualitative discussion. Perhaps the reason is that this was one of the last AOs and they ran out of time. In addition, the Board of Examiners said that many candidates did not support the rates that they were using. So once again, just talk about the why you're using that rate and where you're getting it from. And this is similar to any calculation that you're going to have to do in the exam. Just as a reminder, if you haven't already, it'd be great if you could subscribe or like this video. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know below. So before I go on to the next slide, I just want you to know that I've taken snippets from the PASS CFEs to solve. And these snippets are only 1 to 2 sentences. I blocked out the company name and I didn't disclose which year they're from. The reason for this is because I know some candidates want to approach each case fresh, and they don't want to have any hints on how to solve them. So if that's you, feel free to watch one of my other videos instead. So I'll give 3 seconds if anyone wants to close the video before we move on.